Hello, everybody. This is John Browning from the Building Your Life podcast. And today I've got a special guest with me, Wendy Leggett. Did I pronounce that right, Wendy?
It's great.
All right, fantastic. Well, Wendy and I met each other and we found out that we have essentially often the same client. And I was really fascinated by what she does. She's got a whole list of certifications that I won't go all the way through them, but specializing now in retirement planning, and you hold a certificate from the Retirement Project, the CPRC, which I want you to kind of define for folks and tell people what that is. And I'm going to let you tell everybody exactly what it is that you do. So tell us what it is that you do for people.
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for having me. It's great to get to chat with you and share some things with your listeners. And you're right that I think the path that you and I are on is very aligned. You speak about building a life, not just a portfolio. And I
Okay.
speak to that portion of the portfolio that isn't financial, the psychological portfolio. And
Okay.
so we I think, complement one another because I think we both recognize that people take their whole selves into retirement, and that's my focus is preparing for retirement, having that runway, and then enjoying the retirement that you've worked so hard to achieve. And so having then that that view beyond the financials. And so my background is in sales leadership. I was with corporate a number of different entities for about 25 years and really love the connection with the client, the connection with my team members, coaching them to excellence around service and sales. I came to a juncture where I thought, I really want to bring myself forward more. And so I researched all kinds of things and discovered coaching. I went back to school and I got my professional certified coaching credential from the International Coaching Federation in the school that I attended. And then to your point, I did take it several steps further and really dug into specializing in retirement life planning. So there's the Retirement Project. That umbrella is the Retirement Coaches Association. So that's my CPRC, is a certified professional retirement coach. And I also have certifications from the Retirement Life Plan, which is very research based. So that gives you just a little snippet, hopefully not more than you were looking for.
No, that's perfect. And you've been around, in the professional atmosphere for 25 plus years, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was interesting. Just a couple podcasts ago, we interviewed with somebody who was 25 years old, already financially independent because some really wise choices and some very hard work that she had done. So it was and she serves kind of that beginning, like, young people, you actually can do this, and here's how you do it and start early. We've even taken out the middle side, and we're kind of like, you're coming into retirement, you're thinking about it, or you're actually in retirement. Better if they come to you before, right?
Yeah, but really, it's never too late. And I did listen to that podcast. I'm a devotee of yours as well. And I
Oh,
thought
thank
that
you.
it was just so energized and so, motivating her approach to things and her outlook and support of her clients. So you're right that I'm on the further in the continuum there, but we all have that goal of having people come in with awareness, come in with intention, get motivated about making those plans and stepping into, as you said, that building that better life, that best life.
Exactly. And the thing that just blows my mind is that I run into people all the time that spend significantly more amounts of time planning their 2 week vacation than they do planning their entire retirement.
Yeah.
Maybe they've thrown some money into a 401k or whatever, and they figure they'll retire someday, but they haven't actually planned for what it is and all that, right?
Yeah, that's so funny because I start off a lot of my presentations because I do presentations in person and virtually. And I start off with envision anywhere in the world that you've always wanted to go to, but you weren't able to accomplish it because of time and money. But now you can. And so you get that ticket, you go off to that dream destination. Is that all the planning that you would have done? And that's what happens is that people, they think, okay, I can go retire. One day you're in, the next day you're out. And yeah, there's a honeymoon phase for a bit, and you're traveling and you're doing your to-do list and you're doing all these things. But then it's like, wow, what else is there for me? Is this it? And then people start to feel that weight around their identity, that loss around feeling purposeful, that disconnection because so many of those contacts were at their work, and now they're beyond that, and they think, oh, I'll stay in contact with everybody. But we know when we don't have that shared goal and purpose together, that those relationships fall by the wayside. So those are all the things and more that I really focus on with my clients, trying to start with that awareness, which I think is what you do as well.
Yeah, that's just so interesting. You think about the different phases of life, right? So we go back to high school. You remember the yearbooks, I'm sure they don't do this anymore, but you got the yearbook and you'd have all your friends sign it and make little notes.
Yeah, yeah, it's the best.
I think I still have one in my attic somewhere, right?
I almost all do, yeah. Because
Yeah.
if you go to a reunion, you got to go back and look through everybody, right? You have to
That's
find
right.
who that person was.
Yeah. And I know for the longest time before Facebook, wow, I'm really dating myself again. But before Facebook and all that, I didn't really keep in touch with any of my high school friends. I just, we all moved off in our separate lives. And then college, same thing, right? You get the yearbook, everybody signs it, it's a big event, it's really cool. And then very few of my college buddies and friends have I really kept in touch with. And the same thing with my old work colleagues. Some of us still keep in touch, but not like we did before. And
Sure.
I know people who have down here in Florida. I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida, and we have what they call 55 and up communities.
Yes.
So evidently, I'm officially old now because I'm 55. But those are for kind of that community, and you develop that community again, and then you're not as connected with the other ones. So you're absolutely right. Different phases of life are different. And is that why you kind of got into this? Like, tell us that story, your origination story. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Well, I'm in that baby boomer generation, so I'm aging myself even more than you have been in the conversation. So, people that were born between 1946 and 1964. And so what I was finding with some of my clients and also some of my peers is that they just were kind of falling into retirement without really a plan, and then staying really busy or feeling like they had to go back to work, that unretirement that happened. I mean, oh my goodness. And so I started feeling like, wow, this is an area where I feel that I can really make an impact because I resonate so much with people in this demographic. And I know that we were all raised, well, not everyone, but we weren't raised with positive psychology. That came about like 30 years ago. So we weren't really keyed into our feelings about things. We were hardworking, driving, productive, get it done. And so with that kind of mindset, you step into retirement, you're going to feel like the bottom falls out. I
Yeah.
think you've shared before, we take stepping stones up and then the elevator can drop. And I think that that's what kind of happens for people. And so I don't want anyone to go through that. And that's what I find with my clients is that when they're able to come to me and say that they're struggling, which most people think, how can you struggle in retirement? You're so lucky that you're not working. But the reality is 1 in 3 struggle. And so by normalizing that, first of all, and saying you're not alone, you're not an outlier, and let's look at what does retirement mean to you and what is it that you want to do in this next chapter of your life. So circling back to like why I do it, it's because I feel like there's so much more potential, and sometimes people need that door to be opened for them. I can provide those tools and resources to make that happen.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I often have the conversation, because I ask people why. Why do you want to retire? And why do you think you
I
need
do
$1
too.
million? Right? Why do you think you need 10 million? Maybe you only need 1 million. Maybe you need 500,000. Believe it or not, I have retirees that are very happy and they've got about 500-600 grand and they're making it happen because they have a very low financial need to make them happy and to build their best life. So people ask me, how much do I need to retire? Well, the answer is, it depends. And people always hate that answer. but it's absolutely the truth. I
Yeah.
I have other people on the other side that wouldn't have their best life unless they have 3 million or $4 million, because they have the lifestyle that makes them happy costs more financial resources.
Yes.
It's just
Yeah.
not always the case, right?
No, I think I have that full gamut of people that come to me. Not that I focus on the financial piece, but
Right.
just they share a little bit around that. And of course, I always refer them, if it gets into anything financial, I don't deal with that. But just that this idea that they're equating the happiness with the finances, and we need to kind of deconstruct that a little bit and say, well, what is it? Like you're saying, what is it about retirement? I've had people come to me for retirement life coaching, and as we've started to talk about things and excavate, they don't really want to retire. They just thought at this certain age you're supposed to, or they're getting a lot of pressure from family or friends to come join them and retire. But yet that's not the path that they're on right now. And I fully endorse that. I had a presentation, a gentleman came up afterwards and said, I really loved what you're saying. And when I'm ready to retire, I'll come to you. And he was 92. I'm all for that. So, hey,
Yeah.
I don't I don't believe in retiring for retirement's sake. I do believe if this is the milestone that you're going to be passing through, that then you go into it again prepared and with that awareness. And like you said, we put more time and focus onto planning a trip. Let's take that time and attention and invest in ourselves to make it that best life. So
Yeah. People ask me, well, what about you? When do you want to retire? And my answer is, I have 6 kids, and there's only one that's, left at home. And
mm,
so we're almost empty nesters. And my answer is, I feel like I'm already retired because I'm doing what I absolutely love to do.
mm.
I have the physical and mental capacity to continue doing it. Why would I stop doing something that I love to do? Right.
Yeah, no, and I think the word retirement is under a lot of scrutiny right now. And I think that it is one that we're going to hopefully at some point do away with, because it really had its time and place when people were working in the fields and the factories and they were tired and they needed to retire and they only had a couple of years, and Social Security helped them in that time. But over the years, it's really become very passe. It's just that it's still a shared language and vocabulary. So, what are we going to do? A lot of us try to come up with other terms, but it's not, again, terminology that everyone would use. So, it's what we're stuck with right now, but we don't have to keep that same mindset. So, it really is important. And that's what I'd want to impress first and foremost with your listeners is if you're thinking about retiring, what does that mean to you? And what are you retiring to? And what are you retiring with? Because I think those are really important reflection questions that I ask of my clients as well. And then that's that first stepping stone. And then we go from there into the rest of the roadmap that I work with them on. But John, I did want to mention too, because you brought up like high school and college, and those are milestones and they're also transition points,
Hmm.
as is retirement. And we look at transitions and sometimes get confused between transitions and changes. So we're making that external change in role, but we've got that internal transition where we're needing to really reflect on what we want to bring with us and what we want to leave behind. I don't know if you're acquainted with the work by William Bridges called Transitions, but he speaks about as we move into a transition that we need to start with the end. And we really need to stop and look at what needs closure. What do we put a period or an exclamation mark on? And then go into this period, he calls it the neutral zone, of really reflecting on what we want. And that can be very overwhelming. People can feel stuck, they can feel disconnected, they can feel angry, depending on why they're going into retirement. But then really take that time and heighten that awareness and intention, and then move into the new beginning. So does that kind of sync with your thoughts, or what does that bring up for
Yeah,
you?
I really like that kind of definition and distinction between the two things. That's
Yeah,
that's impactful, and something that I hope everybody takes a minute, maybe rewinds that and listens to that again, because you're right, that's a very important distinction to make.
it is. And if people jump right from career into retirement. And I've had clients like this that come to me, they are so busy, their dance card is so filled, but
Mhm.
it's not fulfilling time. You know, it's filling time, but it's not fulfilling time.
Oh, and
And
everybody
so
catch that, is it's filled but not fulfilled. Yeah, that's a great point as well.
yeah. And so then it's a matter of, well, what's keeping you so busy? And oftentimes it is that lack of purpose or lack of identity and feeling like, well, in order for me to remain relevant or for me to be able to justify my time, then I have to be showing this filled dance card. And so we need to take that kind of pressure off and that expectation off because that's not sustainable, nor is it fulfilling. So those are the kinds of things that come up with clients, all kinds of different things, which in all different ways are so gratifying because it does allow people to see a clear pathway and get really clear on what they want. And that's what I feel so strongly about.
So switching gears just a little bit, tell me like a favorite client story. No names or anything like that, obviously, but tell me like a story about somebody you were able to kind of help work through something with.
Yeah. There are a number of them. One that comes to mind is a client who was in education and loved being of support to, the teachers and to the children and the community. Her husband had retired maybe 7 or 8 years before. And so every year that he was retired, they thought about her retiring, but she loved her work, very devoted, as people, especially in the helping fields, are very devoted to accelerating kids' capabilities and connected with them. And so when she did make that decision to finally retire, because she thought, I've held out this long, it's not fair to my husband. We have plans that we want to do. She was despondent. She was referred to me by her sister. She was despondent. I mean, she really was. She felt like, she said, I feel like this is a death. I feel like this is such a huge loss.
I've heard
And
that.
so we were really able to then, first of all, again, normalize that you're not alone. It's not the rose-colored glasses that we hear in the media so often that woo, it's just everything's going to come up roses. And so we normalize things, and then we really dug into, well, do you not feel that choice? If you wanted to stay, could you stay? And she said, oh, absolutely. My husband would never make me retire. I said, all right, so then you're at choice and you're choosing to go down this path. So let's really focus on what it will bring to you because you're focused on what you're losing, but what are you gaining and where might this take you? And you felt purposeful in your current career. How can we take some of that into retirement? And so I won't go into more of it, except that it really opened up that pathway. It took off that, heavy blanket that was on her. And she decided to then take that caring. She decided to do for a portion of her time. And then, of course, have time with her husband and then other elements that had gotten left by the wayside. So for me, that's a more important story than, so many because she truly just was not seeing anything in her future except for loss. So,
Yeah, and that goes
yeah.
back to that whole planning thing, right? And discovering what it is. I've talked to several people headed into retirement, and when I asked them, what question, what is it that you want to do in retirement? They're like, I love to fish. Great, fantastic. So on day number 15 of fishing, what do you plan to do after that? Oh, I could fish forever. I'm like, trust me. after day number 15 or 100 or whatever it is, you're gonna want to do something different. Well, I'll golf, and
Yeah.
so you need something different than that.
Yeah.
People have their thing, have their
Yeah.
one or two hobbies that they like, but retirement is you're yay, you're free, but also, oh my goodness, I've
Oh
been
my goodness,
running.
I'm free. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, which is it, right? And without really thinking through it and having a plan, which is what you do for people,
Right.
it can be really, I totally understand why people struggle with it. And after 18 years of working for Morgan Stanley, and I was young at the time, I didn't work for Morgan Stanley anymore. And that was like a death in the family. I mean, like, I was seriously, I did not know what to do with myself. I didn't want to retire at that point. So finding another spot
Yeah.
and all of that, I can't even imagine. My father-in-law fairly recently retired, and he worked into his 70s. And he just got to the point where he just couldn't do it anymore. But he still, I think, struggles a little bit with, what do I fill my time with? What do I do? And he's done that, but it's a very difficult thing.
Well, I think too, John, is that we, again, around the filling time, but we have baked into our work a sense of purpose. We know what we're trying to accomplish, or we know what the goal is, or we're working with a team, or whatever it is, but there's purpose built into our work. And oftentimes there's not purpose that's built into the other factors in our life. And that's not purpose with a capital P, like finding purpose, because that's kind of so weighted. But just the idea of feeling purposeful, feeling like we matter, feeling like that we're making a contribution either to ourselves or those close to us or community or the world. But that's what human beings, we need to feel that sense of giving and achieving. And so I think the fishing scenario you're sharing, yes, that's an enjoyable hobby, but we want to have that balance. So yes, we want those hobbies. We also want those other factors in our life to fill out that nice round circle I'm holding up in my hands. Because you think about, if there's 24 hours in a day and your work is 8 or 10 or 12 or more hours, then you have half the day available to you. And then you're sleeping. Oh yeah, you got to sleep. So there's not very much time left over for all these other things. Now you step into retirement, there's time abundance. And so then we can tend to get lost in it because we don't have this direction and we don't have this plan about what will feel purposeful, what will let us continue to bring things forward with us that we had in the past, let other things go. So I feel, again, very strongly about the planning, the awareness, the setting intention, and getting into action. Yeah.
Awareness is a really key thing. I think you have to become aware that there might be, at least come to the recognition that maybe there might be a problem, right? Maybe there might be an issue that you should really address.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and a problem, which can be an obstacle, but also opportunities. Because yes, like that one client who filled her dance card, you could say, oh, there's no problem. But yet deep inside, it wasn't sustainable. She started feeling like she should go back to work. And when people come to me and say, I should go back to work, I really want to roll it back, because you left work for a reason. And so do we just automatically jump back into work, or do we dig a little deeper and say, what is it? What is missing here? What is wanting here? And so I think that's critically important. I talk about a retirement by design, not default. And I feel very strongly about that. I think a lot of times people fall into what they've seen out there, that it's either, like I said, endless weekends, leisure travel, or on the other end of the spectrum, one foot into the grave. Well, there's this happy place in between. So let's go in with realistic optimism. And that's by being planful and aware, whether or not it's with help from me or just really sitting down and saying, okay, what does retirement mean to me? And why am I retiring? What am I retiring to? What do I want to bring with me? And to that point, I want to say too that it's not like it's a whole new book. It is a new chapter, but we're not starting over. We're taking what we want to with us. So I think oftentimes people feel overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail at retirement. I don't know what to do. Let's stop and think about what we have that we can bring with us. I feel that that's important too.
So we've talked a lot about some of the mistakes, but if there was one specific mistake that you and I both talk with our hands. So if you're not watching this on YouTube, you gotta get my hands flying all over the place. But what's like the biggest mistake? Like, if you could pick one thing out of all the things we've talked about, what is the biggest mistake that people make as they start thinking about retirement?
I think the assumptions. just assuming that fishing will be sustainable, just assuming that with work behind them that there'll be no stress. Just assuming that filling their day with a to-do list or hobbies and things like that is going to be enjoyable and feel fulfilling for the 20 or 30 or hopefully more years that the average retiree is going to live out. I think there's a lot of assumptions, and then people come in with these patterns and habits that they haven't really thought about. I have clients who, start their day watching TV and then really get going maybe at noon or something. And so we know that that's, no judgment there if that works, but the studies tell us that the average retiree watches 47 hours of TV a week. So
Wow.
they basically replaced a full-time job with a full-time job of watching TV. And we know
Not knowing that.
all detrimental effects of that for so many reasons, the cognitive, the social disconnect. So this is something where we can't go in with the assumption that we're going to be continuing to feel vital and continuing to feel like we're contributing. So that's what I would say.
So assumptions. I mean, I've heard you've probably heard this old adage as well. You know what? Assume makes of you and me, right?
Yes.
I've told my kids that, and we need to tell ourselves that sometimes, because I think there are a lot of assumptions. A client, I have this often, but one recently I'm just thinking of. Um, his goal was, hey, I want to retire because I want to spend more time with my kids and my grandkids. Fantastic. That's awesome. Quick question for you. Have you talked to them about this? Well, no. Well, so what makes you assume that they want to spend time with you?
No,
And that can be a harsh reality, right? Because we love our grandkids. I have some grandkids I absolutely adore, and right now they're small. They're like 3 years old, and they think I'm cool. At
yeah,
some point, I know, because I've had my own kids, you're not cool anymore, and they don't necessarily want to spend time with you. That's like a harsh reality that goes like right deep in your heart.
yeah.
So when that assumption doesn't work out, what's your next thing? You have to have a plan outside of some of these things. Am I right on that?
Oh, I'm smiling and agreeing with you so wholeheartedly because I think people do just figure, okay, I'm going to map this out and everybody's going to fall in line with my plan
My
without
plan.
really needing it. Or they don't put boundaries up. And so, yes, you love your grandchildren, but some people think, oh, now you're retired, so you've got all the time in the world. So I'm going to assume that you retiree are going to be fulfilling some of these things for me. So there can be assumptions on both sides. And so the anecdote to that is the awareness, it is the planning, and it's the communicating. And
Communicating.
especially what comes up is around couples, because oftentimes couples can go in with assumptions that they have the same view about retirement. Well, if they haven't even really crystallized what their own view is, then it's very difficult to communicate that to someone else. And I've had clients where that becomes really a sticking point, where they're like one client I remember was like managing her husband. She had managed quite a large corporation and now she's home and he's home and then she's managing him. What are you doing? Making sure that his time is productive. That's not, in their case, that was not supportive of a good relationship. So it needed to be looked at a little more closely.
So
I'm not
funny
sure.
that our spouses don't like to be managed like we managed our corporations. Interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nor do our families.
No, yeah, and like to your point, then managing, okay, I'm assuming that those grandchildren are going to want to spend time with me. And it's not that they don't want to spend time with you.
Right.
It's just that that's now out of balance. We're putting too much focus in one area rather than another. And that's what I really want people to achieve is that healthy balance that they've designed. It's not for me to choose. This is highly individualized, but taking that time to really think about, well, what does feel good to me? What does feel important and meaningful to me.
Yeah, all these things are really good. This is a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time, because I work with a lot of executives, a lot of like small and mid-sized business owners, and they're just used to, they've gotten to that level and they've become so successful because they know how to take charge. They know
Yes.
how to allocate resources and they're really good at it. And retirement is so different from that.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And there is that saying, if you are what you do, who are you when you don't? And so for
Oh,
people like that you're sharing, that there's so immersed in it, their identity becomes intertwined with the work. And when the work is behind, then what do they have left? And so that can become a very difficult area. There's the U-shaped happiness curve. Maybe you've heard of it, that people are really happy like in their 20s, and then it really dips down maybe in 40s, and then it starts to climb up again. But there's the striver's curse, I think it's called. And so for many of us, we'll keep soaring till we're 80, 90, but there's that striver's curse where those people that don't feel like they, beyond their work, that they have an identity or purpose, they stay down in that low spot on the curve. Does that make sense?
it
Kind of,
totally makes sense. And that,
yeah.
I'm glad you gave that analogy of the U. I know, and this is where it comes in my business too. You chase that portfolio. I need to make more money. I need to make more money. I need to climb that corporate ladder, climb, climb, climb. And why? Are you building your best life or are you chasing your dollars?
Yes. Yeah. But
And
we get on that train, right? We get on that production train. We push aside the emotions. We push aside the other factors in our life because we feel that sense of achievement. It's very tangible, but yet the intangibles tend to be the things that bring us the most joy. But we don't maybe give them the same kind of weight. So that's what we want to really share with people is give the other parts of your life the weight. And like you said earlier, the client who's very happy with a smaller portfolio, really thinking about what we do have rather than what we don't. And so, regardless of what the size of that portfolio, again, if we're focused on what's meaningful and purposeful to us, the rest falls into place a lot easier because we're looking at things from that point of gratitude and abundance rather than lack. And I've stepped through that with a number of clients as well, where they're looking at what I don't have in my portfolio as opposed to, well, okay, well, to bump it up, you could sell your home if you want. Oh no, I love that home. You could stop having some of these expensive hobbies. Oh no, I love those. All right, then let's be grateful for what we have rather than what not, because you're at choice. You're at choice.
mhm, when you have choice, yeah, you almost always have a choice. And the more you plan, the more choices that you have.
Mm, very true. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just to sort of wrap things up here, because I want people to know exactly how to contact you. But if for somebody who's listening today and they're like, I don't know, they're part of the baby boomer or frankly Generation X, which is me, and they're like self-sufficient and we're not supposed to need to talk to anybody and we got this figured out on our own. If we're
Yeah.
in that mindset, what do people like misunderstand about what you do? What would you say to that person that's like, I don't need this? What would you say to them?
I mean, I have to honor that because I meet
Sure.
people wherever they are. And so if somebody says I don't need this, then that's their path. I feel that way very strongly. It is work. It is, you do have to put time in to really think about what do I want? That's a big question. I help people with that. But it is big, it's something that you have to put the work in. So if somebody said I don't need that, then I would say, then move into retirement. If you do find that you're feeling that struggle that 1 in 3 feel, if you're feeling like, wow, it's getting Groundhog's Day or isn't there more to life, then I would say to them, okay, then let's take a pause and say, all right, how can I change this picture? Because they absolutely can.
I like that. I like because you're right. It is their path, and I say that to people all the time as well. Hey, if you think that for your financial planning, just throw it into an S&P 500 fund or whatever, and don't worry about the income, don't worry about the tax implications, all that. Don't do any planning. That's fine. That's your path. Fantastic. If and when you need, you start realizing that, hey, maybe I assumed too much, then here's my information. I want to make sure that people are aware of what it is that you do, which is help people transition. Am I right? Help people transition into retirement, into not just retirement, but a fulfilling, joyful, for lack of
Yes.
a better term, form of retirement. So if they did go through the U, hopefully nobody goes through that U, but we all do, right? We go through that bottom period, but they
Yes.
keep going on the upward side of the other side of that U and
Yes.
enjoy their best life.
Absolutely, because we've got a lot of life ahead of us, and we don't want just a lifespan. We want a health span, and that health is also coming in with a strong mental, emotional, socially connected approach to things. So, yeah, yeah, very, very well put. So, because I think people do just, they're at choice. You know, I feel strongly when you don't make a choice, you're making a choice. And so
Mhm.
if you're choosing to go, you know, forward as a do it yourself, which I think a number of people can navigate that very well and they're very satisfied. But I don't want those that are resigned. And like I said, for me, I don't want people to go into retirement by default. I want them to live it out of their design, their creation.
Have you ever noticed that almost all the choices that you have where it says, here's your just, if you don't do this, this is your default option? Generally not a good option. It's not the best option for you in
Yeah.
almost everything, right? So it's
Yeah.
offered, but it's probably not the best.
But sometimes people don't know all those options, and that's where the reflecting, and that's where if they choose to work with me, I can open that door. You know, I think when we get narrowly focused, we stop seeing the possibilities. And if
Yeah.
we stay on a path that we're not really looking beyond what we set out, then we're going to miss out on things. Or if we have to pivot, like in COVID, you know, where people's plans change dramatically, if we don't have that positive mindset that other things are possible and that I can control certain things and step into those, then time can become very heavy and that precious time can be lost. So
Right.
but now I jumped off into a whole nother area, didn't I?
Well, this has been a lot of fun. How is the best way, the easiest way for somebody to reach out to you and just have a conversation? I think you and I already discussed this, but you're not in it to sell anybody anything, and you just said that, right? It's but
Yeah.
if they want to have just a conversation with you, see what they might be missing, how's the best way to do that? And I'll have it in the show notes as well, but let's say it here too so people know.
Oh, perfect. I appreciate that. Well, I do want to offer your listeners a mini workbook for retirement readiness, and it has several pages to it. It does speak to this reflection. It does speak to raising your awareness, your intention, your motivation, steps through that. And so that mini workbook is available. That's like a little link. So that'll be in the show notes. But when people click on that link, then it'll also offer a link to have a 1 hour free discovery call with me. And from the discovery call, I will definitely look at what's coming up for you. You know, what did you find in that workbook, or what obstacles, opportunities? And then from there, if they choose to then work with me further, then I have all kinds of different packages that will land whatever their individual needs are. But so to find me, the easiest thing, the name of my company is Conflux. So that's CONFLUX. So to find me, you can go to confluxretirementcoaching.com. And that's a mouthful, but that's the easiest. And on there, you can click on a link to be on a call with me. But I'd love to send that mini workbook out to whomever clicks on the show notes on that link. I think they'll enjoy it, and I'd love to chat with them about what their findings are.
That's fantastic. And I will include all those in the show notes. Those of you who are regular listeners already know this, but it is very easy to contact me. You can either text the word life, just LIFE, to 321 421 5213. You'll get all of my links to all of my information, as well as a calendar link to schedule some time on my calendar. Or go to guardianrockwealth.com. Also, lots of free information there. And there's a contact us section. Really easy to just ask a question or schedule some time on my calendar. But until next time, Wendy, thanks so much for taking the time and kind of shedding some light on the assumptions that we tend to make, and that there is somebody out there that you can talk to help you think through what retirement means for you and how to help you build your best life, not just using the tool we call money, which is what we usually talk about on the Building Your Life podcast, but the more important part, frankly, which is what is your best life and why is that your best life and how are you going to execute on that?
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, this is such a delight. It's always great to talk to you. I enjoyed the questions, the energy, and the way that you serve your listeners and your clients. So thank you so much, John.
All right, everybody, we will see you again here in about a week or so on the next episode of the Building Your Life podcast. We'll see everybody later.